Welcome everyone to the next episode of the Catributors podcast, and today's guest is Zfilez. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Nope.
Everybody knows
short
who I am.
and precise.
In, everybody. Been a good podcast.
Well, and with that introduction out of the way, let's talk about the first topic for tonight, submarines.
Everyone's favorite.
So, I mean, we've gone over a lot of those changes in previous dev blogs, basically. I'm not sure why they didn't include submarines with the actual update. They basically waited, 3 days, and then had an entire patch just to bring submarines back.
Which you were super happy about, because all the replays from the previous patch that you could play, you then couldn't play anymore.
Yes, at least submarines have now even screwed... Well, we all knew that we were going to screw us, but they screwed me in an unexpected way. So
it's an extra tiny bit of salt in the wound.
Yes. So you can still get them with the regular missions, right? I think you do base experience and unlock them.
Yeah, for the tier 6s, and then you actually have to play the tier 6s to get the tier 8s and so forth.
Oh, okay.
No, I didn't play them. No, I just played like the same ship 3,000 times.
Was I not paying attention enough to the actual combat missions? I guess not.
It was like 2,500 for the tier 8 and tier 10, not combined, but I just played the Pusen all the way, and then I unlocked to the tier 10.
Okay. I don't know. I played a bunch of the tier 6s, and then the tier 8s popped up, so I assumed it was me playing the tier 6s that made the tier 8s pop up. But I guess I was wrong.
Yeah, it's probably that you just need to play a ship with a certain minimum tier to unlock the higher tiers.
I think it's over tier 6. So, therefore the tier 6 submarines would have counted, I suppose.
Good enough.
Yep.
So yeah, in their newest edition, submarines, well, they basically have more hit points. They have nerfed the Anti-Submarine Warfare to do less damage. Basically, they want Anti-Submarine Warfare to do damage over time, like with floodings. It's funny because Wargaming has a way of... I don't think they're aware of it, but the way they word it, they basically tell everyone their bad ideas. It's... There it is. However, bombing an area is also small changes for density. There was a sentence where they basically said that it's ineffective to focus submarines. Basically, you know what? They don't bother. If somebody else is airdropping that, we don't want you to reward you for focusing down submarine.
My experience, especially of playing destroyers, has been that you don't bother because unless they're right underneath you, it's still way more effective for people with airdrop depth charges to go after subs.
Oh, definitely.
So there's no... As I've said previously, they just seem like a parody of what they were in real life. And their main adversary in real life is probably the thing they least have to worry about in World of Warships.
Yeah. So I found the exact wording that I was looking for. This means that putting her under a barrage of airstrikes won't be an overly effective way using this armament. So Wargaming is straight out saying that assisting submarines with depth charges shouldn't be effective. They don't want that because their main damage is going to be flooding, and you can only have one flooding. And speaking of that, so like yesterday, I was in the tier 10 Pan-Asian cruiser, the new one, forgot its name. And I had a submarine surface like 2 kilometers in front of me, launch its torps and just go down again. And I hit it the entire time while it was on the surface with my guns, and then hit it with depth charges once it was, diving, and it just escaped. And I missed all of its torpedoes because it was a rather inexperienced player. But if that person would have known how to aim torpedoes at 2 kilometers, I would have been dead without a counterplay. And that's a light cruiser, right? Surfacing 2 kilometers in front of a light cruiser. And you can't detect them because even Hydro sees them at only 2 kilometers if they actually dive. Not that Pan-Asians have Hydro.
And they have enough damage control parties that generally, if you do get the oil leak mechanic coming into play, if you're safe, you can just surface, and I think that automatically gets rid of it. Or you can use the damage control party while you're underwater, which will also get rid of it. So that's like the one telltale while they're underwater, which is, it's a new thing that at least now exists, but it's really easy to counter that if you're in a submarine. And the fact that you have limited DCPs doesn't really affect it that much in my admittedly so far limited experience. I've only played in the tier 6s so far, but I really didn't find the oil leaks to be a problem.
Yeah, but you also notice the oil leak is like for 5 seconds. What's that going to do? Nothing really.
Well, from having seen it from the surface, I mean, I have been on the other side where I was able to see where someone was from the oil leak. It kind of was like almost a trail of breadcrumbs, so it would appear on the surface for a couple of seconds, and then you'd see the new oil leak, and then you could kind of infer where they were moving from that trail.
I mean, it helps a bit with aiming like your depth charges if you want, or it could help you angle against where you might think torpedoes are coming from.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not overly effective. It's just a smoking. The problem is, as you said, they have limited damage controls, but I have like 3 of them, right? And considering that they are a lot harder to kill now because depth charges don't do so much damage, and because they have more hit points now, they can not using the homing torps, but the regular torps, surface in front of a ship like 2 kilometers, unload all of their torps, and then get away. And then they get hit with an oil leak and a flooding and they press a damage con, and then they do the same thing again to the next ship, right? And they can probably pull that off like 3 times or so before they eventually get sunk, also depending on how much attention the enemy team plays. But the amount of damage they can do in a strike can like one-shot a ship. Sorry, I interrupted.
That's going to be... I mean, you don't ever want to be a lone target in a game where there's subs and the submarine is near you, because there's not a lot you can do unless they completely mess things up. In terms of like knowing where they are, where to angle against, where they're going to pop up. I mean, if they start pinging you, you're going to have some idea. And obviously, once torps are in the water, you'll know at least which direction the torpedoes are coming from. But even then, it's like I don't know. It's almost like the old days of invisi-firing destroyers, where you can see where the shells are coming from, but
it's not like you can do anything about it.
Yeah, there's a reason they took that out of the game.
Well,
I mean, sorry.
No, just go on.
It's also that I still think like the homing. I haven't encountered that much homing yet, so I can't tell you how effective they are currently. Homing, I think the Germans are supposed to be better with homing, but homing is still just a terrible mechanic. And the really dangerous submarines are usually the ones that just pop up right in front of your nose, because you can't see them until they're 2 kilometers in front of you. Technically, they just, surface, launch all their torps, and then go down again. And I mean, at this range, you're not gonna dodge usually.
And the homing has a shorter arming time than actually the other torps have. Like it's 1.9 on the German, the non-homing ones, and like 1.6, I think it was, the homing one. So it's like a big difference. So if you pop up 2 kilometers in front and the person just sails straight forward, you won't arm them, the non-homing ones.
Yeah, okay, it depends on the movement, but generally you don't want to pop up of a ship that goes towards you anyway. You want to see its broadside, basically. And I mean, you don't necessarily need to be 2 kilometers, it can also be 3. It's just that 2 kilometers is where actually Hydro can pick you up when you are under the water, right? It's in 2 kilometers you can actually detect the sub with something, right? So that's the closest they can possibly get without being seen. So
I was playing some subs today in the morning. The homing seems to be like it's still the same as it was like 2 patches ago, if I'm not totally incorrect. They still stop homing around like 800 meters.
Mhm.
Then they stop turning. So I think it's kind of balanced, but there is like some other things they should balance instead of like the homing torps or the damages.
I mean, honestly, I should just get rid of the homing. Homing, I think, is a terrible mechanic. Also, it's like if you use the non-homing torps, it's already that pings no longer work. So if you are focusing on the non-homing torps, you don't even need pings anymore. So why not just get rid of this entire?
Yeah, you know the length of the torps then? Like they're way shorter. They're not like the 11 km. On the German ones, they're like 6 km. Are you going to pop up like 6 km if in front of somebody? No.
I mean, the problem is that if you like, the problem is that you can't really detect subs, right? So they can get as close as they want almost, and they are now survivable enough that they can actually just pop up, launch their stuff, and be on their merry way. As you can't track them down. And it at least used to be like with the last patch that submarines were very squishy. So if the ships actually shot the submarine and then dropped all of the airstrikes on it, then the submarine was probably dead. But now Wargaming has ensured that sub gets away.
It's certainly a lot easier than before. Like there was one game where I was in a situation I was like a Mutsuki or something chasing after me. So terrible guns, but I was forced to the surface because I ran out of air, and everyone around me had managed to die. But the second last person had set fire on the Mutsuki, so I was forced to the surface. But the Mutsuki was burning away, so it managed to shoot away like a third of my health before it died, which I feel like previously, even with the Mutsuki's terrible guns, I probably would not have survived that necessarily. But yeah, I don't know. It just felt weird being forced to the surface next to a destroyer and walking away being the one alive.
Yeah, because submarines were there were absolutely glass cannons, and I mean they were still powerful. So they were like, well, how about our spreadsheet says submarines die too quickly, so how will we make them more survive? I also like once again the wording here. Just something else from the article, like ships can nullify ping hit sectors by using damage control party. However, if the submarine hits the same ship once or twice in the same sector, torpedoes get their homing bonus again. So basically, even in their article where they say like, look, don't even bother damage conning, it's just gonna ping you again anyway.
Yeah, I've had that a couple of times where someone's used it and I've been able to just retarget the torpedoes. There was sufficient time to do that.
Yeah, it's a very long-lasting damage con, or the torpedoes are still very far. It's a very long-lasting damage con, right? Then maybe it's.
Yeah, if you're using the damage con mod, perhaps you can probably outlast it.
But then the next launch you're just caught with your pants down. But in most cases, even the same launch of torps you can't counter with damage con.
And also, like if you target the person with your torps, it would actually say this person cannot be pinged. Well, not directly, but it says like the ping will be nullified.
Yeah.
So it's like
So you can just wait exactly when that message disappears.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, yeah, good work. It's like making the games too easy. Like a kid is going to play this game soon.
That's great. They can gamble in the show. Yeah. So, well, basically, the subs are now more powerful. Is I think the moral of the story,
Certainly,
and as annoying as ever.
Of competent players, like they've given the players that have figured out how to submarine, like they're just that much more powerful now. I've encountered a couple of players in subs where they've just absolutely they've not had basically any opposition on whatever flank they were on, and they've walked away with 3 or 4 kills and really high on the team list. Which, totally balanced.
I mean, it
But there
feels
wasn't really any counter.
Yeah, it feels like the carriers all over again. It's like, hey, in order to get people to play this class and be effective, we just remove counterplay. And it almost feels like there is simple, like there is a limit on how many ships you can be dev strike, because, every time you surface in front of someone, you probably take some damage, right? So it's like, yeah, okay, as a submarine, you get to kill 3 or 4 ships, and then maybe your health is depleted if the enemy pays attention.
Which is always a big if.
Which is a big if, yes.
What I noticed, with the battles I had, and we were having a sub in the enemy team or in my team, either if the sub player is good, he is quite high up on the list, base experience, or if he's less competent, let's call it like that in a nice way, then he's in the bottom, not between the bottom. Yeah. He is in the bottom. Either they perform good, or they're just I don't know, a tool.
I think that's been kind of how things have been with subs pretty much all along. Especially now, we're at a stage where people have had multiple patches, even if they've not been contiguous patches, to play around with submarines, and so you've got these players in them that can be quite competent, and especially if there's a bit of luck involved as well. If you get yourself a situation where counterplay isn't even remotely possible, then they can wreck face. But then there's just the other extreme of people derping around and getting sunk really quickly, and not or else surviving but having absolutely minimal impact because they don't really understand positioning or how to read the minimap or anything like that, and so they aren't able to use the tools that submarines have that can be really powerful if used right, and really hard to counter. Well, there was one game where a sub only pops up at the very end as actually being spotted, and there was basically the only indication where they were on any flank was that they'd sunk a couple of ships, but I had no idea what their actual position was until they popped up to the surface right at the very end, because they'd not been detected at any point. And that was the first point where they targeted me. So I had the idea of, oh yeah, there's a submarine there. At which point they'd already killed 3 of my allies, and there wasn't really anything to do about it at that stage.
Yeah, it's a bit like the flanking destroyer. I mean, destroyers sometimes get away with that too, but against destroyers, you'd have, for example, raider ships, or you'd have your own destroyers to counter them, or as much as a carrier could spot them.
Yeah.
Against the submarine,
this was a game without carriers as well, so there wasn't without a carrier in play. There's basically no possibility of a sub just getting spotted while it's trying to stay sneaky on the surface.
Yeah, I mean, technically subs could find other subs, but the sub versus sub content is so awkward that nobody would ever bother. And subs aren't fast enough to react to this. They aren't, while subs are pretty fast in this game, especially compared to historical speeds, they aren't destroyer level fast, so they have a harder time. And they can't be detected realistically with Hydro or Radar. Well, can be raided on the surface, and they can be hydroed on surface and periscope depth, but the tools just aren't there really to find them.
And of course, if they do make the tools to fight them way more powerful, then suddenly subs become completely useless. It's almost like they're incredibly hard to balance in a game that was never meant to have them in the first place. Weirdly enough.
Shocking. I'm shocked, I tell you.
It's like shooting yourself on the foot.
Yeah, wargaming is pretty good at that.
You also still can't take them in operations, which I don't know why that's the case. Would at least be interesting to try subs in operations in the one mode where they might actually have a place without being just not fun for
I mean, definitely.
most people. But, I guess if you put them in operations, they wouldn't be balanced for operations in the same way that they are definitely balanced for random battles.
But I mean, look, this would. I mean, I'm not personally the biggest fan of operations, but imagine like you just get a few people together and you'd made like an operation with subs only in your team. I mean, that could be fun. Not sure if it would, but if you'd manage to do the operation, but it would be a fun try.
Jedi, did you try if you can go inside training rooms with sub now? Because before you couldn't.
That I haven't tried, but I do have the client open, so I could actually give that a go just now. For science.
Yeah, because that would actually be something good. My main complaint about subs is the cost of trying them out, and they are under testing. Have them as the super ships, no credit gain, and like no minus or plus. If they want to test something.
They didn't even reset submarine skills on commanders.
No, they didn't. I know. I'm still having my Gunther on my Germans.
Yeah, which I realised that. I put in a commander I'd used last time, a 21-point commander, and was like, oh, well, I'm not respecing that because that's a 21-point commander. Why wouldn't they do that? Anyway, let's see if I can... it looks like it will let me.
Oh, it will? That's kind of nice.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. Like, if you want to try out something, make the training room work for them. Otherwise, it's not the testing. It's waste of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could go into training room and, for example, test how good the homing is or how well you can dodge it and stuff. I'm too lazy to do that myself, I guess, but it's good that it's possible now.
So, I mean, despite Wargaming's efforts, subs are still a no from me.
And from the community as a large too, from what I've seen so far.
Yeah. It was definitely with a kind of sigh of resignation when I saw the thing pop up that they were coming back in.
They just waited a few days to screw us all over even more.
Yeah.
Should we move on to the next topic?
I think so. I think we'll just be going round in circles about complaining about subs if we stick with them.
I like that they have them, but like as the state they are in, like just throw in something that doesn't work and people knows about it. Just try them out and then say eventually like, we tried it didn't work, thank you very much. And then scrap the idea. Don't keep on going for I don't know how many X years.
I mean, they've said a couple of times now, if it doesn't work, we won't. We'll
they'll test it.
Junk the idea, but there's no sign of that actually happening. They just keep sticking with it.
Yeah, they will test it until it works. That's their philosophy, I think.
Or until everyone's just been beaten into submission and accepts them through sheer exhaustion of complaining about it.
I think it's in the name sub mission.
That's what they're going for, clearly.
The problem is that Wargaming has very different ideas of what working means than we do, or what the community as a whole do, right? For most people, it'd be like working means that they fit into the game, they have their role, they are somewhat fun to play and play against. For Wargaming, it's like, we have this spreadsheet there, and we need this amount of average damage and this amount of survival time, and maybe this amount of win rate, and then we're good to go. And if everything's on fire around us, that doesn't really matter because as long as the spreadsheet's fine.
I think honestly they should put the player experience first and foremost rather than spreadsheets, which is how it seems to be at the moment. Or rather, it's the other way around. Spreadsheets first.
Well, it is a company. They need to earn money. That's one of the things. I do understand their way of thinking, but it's also like the players.
I guess, but at this point, it really does seem to be like the sunk cost fallacy of they just keep putting more time and resources into tinkering with submarines instead of looking at the bottom line and going, right, let's cut our losses. This is still not working. It's still not particularly popular. Let's just do the sensible thing and not spend any more money on it. But no, they just keep doing that instead. So, I don't know.
They need to see a hit in the player numbers, I think, or something like that until they would react. And even then, I mean, we'll see what happens. I'm not optimistic, let's put it like
I've certainly had a couple of games where it's, like, there's been like 2 subs and a CV, and I'm in a destroyer, and I just have to, that's it. I just stop playing after that game is done because it's just not fun at all. It's just frustrating at that point. And that's the reason I stopped playing World of Tanks, because it became far more frustrating than fun. And I really don't want World of Warships to end up in that same place.
Yeah, but in World of Warships, at least you aren't getting stunned by, oh, wait.
Yes, that moves us neatly on, I suppose. It segues us to our next big topic / announcement, which is they've decided in order to bring back the odd-tiered carriers, which I think we've known for a while they've wanted to do, is that they're going to make them different than the existing lines in that they're going to be support carriers.
No, they are not odd-tiered. They are still even-tiered.
Oh, they're still going to be even-tiered, but I mean, I reckon at least some of them will be the old odd-tiered ones.
Oh, yeah,
they had modelled.
They're going to make a new tech tree line. So this is more content because people have nothing else to do,
Yes.
grinding.
Yeah, these are going to be separate tech trees, as like how we have double battleship tech trees and double destroyer branches and things like that.
But as you've said, it's likely that they use the old carrier models that have been removed that used to be odd-tier regular carriers and just make them into even-tiered support carriers.
Which we know by now that for wargaming, modelling of ships is it takes a really long time. It's a really resource-intensive thing because compared to like World of Tanks, these are far more detailed models. There's far more going on, and there's probably more difficulty with historical documents and deciding exactly, in what year are we going to take the outfit of X ship kind of thing. So for them to be able to just use models that they've already made is probably going to be I'm not surprised that they wanted to take this resource they already had that wasn't currently in game and actually do something with it. But I just wish there were. Well, to be honest, I just wish there weren't any more CVs. But now it looks like we're going to get more CVs. But at least it won't. I mean, they're going to be in the same slot as regular CVs, damaging CVs, whatever we want to call them. But it might still, at least for a while, increase the overall CV population. So that's not welcome. I do not want that, not even a little bit.
Well, I'm the opposite. I think I like the idea, but why introduce a new ship line instead of testing them? Copy past like the current ships to with the new things they want to try out, instead of making a new ship line, because I am tired of grinding new ships to just see how they work.
There is precedent for that. I mean, they have used variants of existing models with different characteristics. I think did they do that with the Vermont, and I'm sure they've done it with other other ships as well, where they'll take the ship.
Also.
Yeah, they'll copy paste it. They'll fill with the characteristics in order to try out a particular setup that they have in mind. So yeah, they could have easily have done that with like one or two of the current ships instead of just announcing an entire line. So I don't know. Maybe they've done that in a closed test environment already.
I mean, I think
don't know how far advanced this concept is.
I think the problem is, or what I'm getting from this is, Wargaming wants to add more carriers, but they are running out of ideas how to differentiate carriers from each other, right? Because I mean, they've heavily leaned on the skip bombs for now, but they don't have an idea how to make. They want to make more carrier lines, but how do they make carrier lines different? Because ultimately, that's new content that they can sell their player, right? And you said, Zfilez, you're tired of grinding. That's fine, because Wargaming doesn't want you to grind. They want you to spend 80,000 doubloons to skip the grind. So they've just come up with how can we get more carrier lines in that are different, so they're like support carriers, because people have for long suggested. I mean, people haven't suggested to sort of add support carriers. They've just, how about if carriers were more support vessels, right? People have said, the damage carriers don't work so well that Wargaming wants to in the game. Why don't we balance that into more of a support role? And Wargaming was like, oh, you said support carriers. Hold your beer. We've got new lines for you.
Yeah. So the headline is the stun bombs, but they're also talking about aerial smoke screens as well as a new thing, and chaff to nullify radar. So I mean, that honestly, like the one thing in all of this that I think, like an anti-radar or a radar hindering consumable, actually, that is kind of a neat idea, and that's probably been suggested a whole bunch in the past as well.
Yes,
but yeah, I mean, stun mechanics in games generally are really quite unpopular, and certainly World of Tanks is absolutely no exception to that. And I don't think anyone really wants to see that coming to World of Warships, even though it's not going to be quite the same. It's going to affect your consumables rather than slowing down your reload and slowing down like the various crew abilities that you have in World of Tanks. So it's not going to be quite as bad, but there's still a lot of potential there for it to be incredibly irritating to be on the end of.
I mean,
and then it will have to have some fairly strong scorecard benefit to the player that's doing it, because as it says in the current concept, they'll do almost no damage and have a very low chance of setting fire, so it's almost purely going to be the stun effect. And just, I mean, can you imagine being in a destroyer and being on the end of that, and like you can't use your smoke generator, you can't use your speed boost or anything like that, and all the while you're being spotted by planes.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the thing with the stun is, right, so they can lock down your damage control party. The problem is damage control is often already not enough, right? Because as the game has progressed, fires or fire chances have been power crept in a way that sometimes one ship can relatively consistently set 2 fires on your ship, right? So if you're in a damage con, you just get set on fire again. Now you can even lock down damage con, making like the overworked damage con even more useless. And that's just not really, I think, what we need. And then as you've touched on the smoke screen, right? Smoke is the last thing that's kind of, or the only thing that really helps you against the carrier because of the spotting. Because even you can't shoot down planes fast enough to get out of the spotting, right? Or sometimes they can even spot you from out of your anti-air range. And you can't outrun them because planes are fast. It's you can't hide behind islands because they can just see you still. So the only thing to really defeat carrier spotting is a smoke. And now they can just lock down your smoke, so you're even more screwed. It's one of the really bad ideas that Wargaming has come up with recently, I guess.
Yeah, like I said, the chaff thing, I kind of like the idea of, but the rest of it just leaves me a bit cold, to be honest. And as a solo ship, I really question how effective these would be. Like, if you were in a division and coordinating with people to try and block their damage control party or other consumables, for example. And plus, if you're at the same, maybe not exactly the same time, because obviously you can only have one squadron up at a time. But, well, it depends, actually. You might be able to do it with the stun bomb squads, but you could put down a smoke screen for some allies, and then you go and spot for said allies, and stun somebody from using their countermeasures in the process. Then that would be immensely frustrating to be on the targeting end of.
I mean, they look very much like any support character in video games. They are focused on like teamwork, right, or working together with your team. So they're going to be incredibly powerful, possibly if played correctly with your team assisting you, or utterly useless if nobody takes advantage of what you're doing.
Maybe they're counting on that being the limiting factor, that they all average out on the spreadsheet, because people playing solo probably won't do that well because random team play or lack thereof, and although they'll probably be potentially very, very powerful in a division with competent players or even semi-competent players, because even you don't have to be the best players in the world to have a pretty decent impact on a game in a division, just because the ability to coordinate with a couple of other players is a fairly powerful thing. So it might well have a disproportionate effect there, but in the spreadsheet it'll all balance out, so it'll be fine. Totally.
It's not only like being in a division, it's also like if there is two different CVs, like one support and one.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, then you can literally kill ship by ship by ship, because they won't have a chance. Like, if you can just strike out their damage con, their radar, their smokes, it's like a concept of these two people is ruling the world.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can get two carriers in a tier 10, or can?
Yeah, you can. It's possible, sadly.
Okay. I mean, it would need some matchmaking because you can't division up two carriers, and I don't think they're gonna to change that. But if you find yourself in a two-carrier game with a support and regular carrier, it's gonna be a nightmare if they work together. But what's also a problem is, right, if they are basically, the matchmaker treats them the same, so you can have one support carrier versus one regular carrier. So balancing those two to be equally effective is already going to be very hard. It's sort of like with cruisers, right? If one team might have a non-radar cruiser and the other team has a radar cruiser, that's not ideal, and that can already screw matches a little bit. But at least from other ships, you have multi-bluffs usually, and no ship has that much match impact as a carrier. So if they want this to work somewhat, support carriers need to be performing on the level, or relatively close to the level of damage carriers. So by default, they need to design an overpowered carrier. And I'm very afraid of what that means, because since a lot of people don't actually use team play, the support carrier must be tremendously strong with the support it offers, so it can offset the damage carrier.
But that also means, like, if a weak person, I mean, like a less competent person is playing the support carrier, and if they go after his performance, that means also like they have to buff it. And if he's performing bad, that means they actually have to make either the planes being replenished really fast, or the planes being Roosevelts.
I mean, imagine like Roosevelt's planes, but with support. Like, because I mean, spotting is already like the best support that carrier can offer, right? So if they stick just over ships and spot them constantly, and then occasionally just disable their damage cons and stuff, oh my god, don't We need to delete it from the podcast. Wargaming can't hear that.
I'm already having nightmares about like the new support CVs. Like you're bringing my nightwear to a new level. Hello.
I don't like. It would have been maybe more interesting if they'd gone the other way, in that you're buffing allies with the support CV with abilities that would. I mean, I don't even know how it would work, but you could.
Turn out fires? Is that what you mean?
Maybe, yeah. It's like
Yeah.
even like oh god, the thingy mode where you've got the pickups in the ocean. Like, what if your planes could drop pickups for allies every so often that would give them, a buff? Or you could put out fires, or like if you made it that style of support carrier, then I think that would certainly be the less unpopular option. I don't know how you would do it in terms of then rewarding players for that, but I think if it was that style of things, I for one would certainly be at least a bit more interested in the concept, instead of it essentially being the stun class.
You're onto something there. I would love that. Like, you could have like that you can drop like water on a ship, right? You just fly with the planes above it, drop water, take care of a fire or so for them. You could drop like something like an additional consumable charge for a ship, or you could drop like a small heal that they can pick up. Or, I mean, we are already in magical fairy dust land when it comes to what ships do in this game. So you could have a healing class. I mean, you could have a ship that just flies like planes that fly on top of you and have a healing ray down to you. We don't need to maybe enter that much fairy dust territory yet.
Well, I mean, you could have instead of doing damage to the enemy team, you could have the kind of focus of it being fighters to counter the enemy's attack squadrons, which is like an element of the gameplay that sort of more or less went away with RTS carriers, and then have the kind of buffing / healing abilities alongside that. So that could be a thing that I think people would enjoy more. Certainly, I would find it a far more interesting concept.
Yeah, like, I mean, support classes are usually not that popular in video games, but they have their audience, right? And it's not like they want like that many carriers per match anywhere. So if you give them like actual support abilities, like maybe healing ships in a certain way, or buffing them, or like taking out fires and so on, just strengthening your team, there would probably be an audience there, and it would make... I would be into that, right? I would find that interesting, right? Just make them... Instead of make them more toxic, just make them actually nice.
Carrier that people are happy to see fly near them. I mean, can you imagine such a thing?
Imagine you load into a game and you're like, yes, we have a carrier!
Just imagine. Sorry, go on.
And that's something that somebody in my chat like mentioned like yesterday. What if they, instead of having this idea that support carriers are just like other carriers, make them odd tiers, right? Now, obviously, the problem is that I won't have a tier 10 area, but it's like you have all even tier carriers, like the damaged ones, and the odd tier, the support ones. And then the matchmaking is also no longer a problem because you match like support carrier with support carrier.
That would actually be logical.
Whoever said that was a good man.
Yeah, the only problem, of course, is then you wouldn't have a tier 10, and Wargaming is so invested in their tier 10, I guess, that they wouldn't want it. But if it's an actual support vessel, that's not that much of a problem, because your plane health, for example, isn't that problematic if you are like supporting your team by, I don't know, healing them, dropping smoke, buffing them, or so on.
Jedi said it would be hard to calculate. It's actually quite easy. If you literally turn out the fire of E-Team's GK, as he likes to burn in it, it's like your like just nullifying the damage the fire would have done, and that's
Yeah, for that
experience for you.
specific
Like,
for stuff like that. Yeah.
yes, and like the amount of healing you're doing is like, let's say if every one health is equal to 0.2 experience, if you heal him for like, let's say 10,000 healing, then it's, let's say 100 experience. And it would be easy, just make not make a too long cooldown, like 2.5 minutes, but make the heal at least 2 or 3 people can pick it up. So not only just one, because then you would just be biased against somebody. Let at least 2 or 3 people pick it up.
Mhm.
So then it like gathers people together so they can actually join forces. It enforces people maybe.
I mean, one of the things they've done in the Sunray operation was the consumables getting more powerful over time. So that's a thing that exists already. So you could, I don't know, you do X amount of like support, and by the time you get to the end of the game, you know, you've got more powerful abilities available maybe, but on the other hand, that might make it more unbalanced. So I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud here, really.
Yeah. I mean, I think there is a lot of. I mean, all of this needs to be tested, right? And the experience earned, you'd need to do some actual testing and see how much a carrier can do per battle, and then see how much you want to reward each activity with. Like you could drop you could have a repair platform. Like you can have a plane that drops a little platform into the game that lasts for 20 seconds and gives a small heal to ships in the area or things like that, or buffs that gives them a small like fire rate buff or whatever. It's like, I feel like if you look at more at other games like RPGs or so, there are a lot of possibilities for buffs, and it's hard to fit them into a more realistic setting, come up with something that makes sense. But as we've established, wargaming isn't big on making sense anyway. So use that once for something positive, right? Instead of making like way too fast subs and homing torpedoes, just be like, yeah, okay, maybe we can drop repair platforms now. I mean, sorry.
I was just thinking, like, World of Tanks actually had an event where you shot your own tank allies to heal them. This would also be like, the CV concept, putting up something and then like starting healing them instantly.
Oh yeah, I mean, you could have planes that sort of attack a friendly ship with a heal. I mean, you'd sort of need to at least come up with a bit of a concept why that would work. I feel like for example, you could drop water actually on a ship to like deal with the. I mean, not that you can you can drop something on a ship to take out a fire possible and help with that. There is even if it's not a historical sense, there is a certain bit of logic to it.
Yeah, dropping repair parts, just pure example.
Yeah,
Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah.
Like, just call it repair supplies or something. Just hand wave it a bit and it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, ships can. Yeah, you can drop. That reminds me on Star Trek Online, where you can it's like transport repair team where you can heal another ship. You basically beam over a repair crew. Just drop them with planes, right? We already have little parachute guys in the game, right? Instead of having bombs dropped from your planes, you drop little parachute guys, and when they hit the ship, then you get a healer.
You might have to swim a bit to get to the ship, but that's fine.
Look, there you can bring skill in, right? Because you can drop them like regular bombs with the RNG, and then you can miss all of your repair guys, and they don't get a heal. And then you can blame your allies because they sail out of your heal drop.
A brand new opportunity for calling people a noob.
Yeah, and then flame each other because they're like, why didn't you drop the heal on me? And like, why did you sail out of my heal? So, support carriers could be a force for good. They'll probably just be evil, though. Because there are a lot of good ideas how to make this a good, fun addition to the game. But wargaming is going with none of them. But it's only a closed concept test, so there's still a lot of potential. It's just gonna probably be unused potential because we all know that first of all, wargaming is very bad listening to feedback, and second, if they have a concept, they usually claw or they get their teeth in it and don't want to go. Now that they said the word stun bombs, they'll probably die on that hill.
Oh, yeah, maybe, yeah. It's more likely than not, given their history. So there probably are examples one could point to that I can't think of any offhand that where they have dropped a concept or changed a concept, but it's the definite exception rather than the rule.
Also, since we're on the topic of carriers, I just wish they'd like this would also be a good opportunity to like move the spotting from carriers just to support carriers, because we all know spotting is such a powerful support that carriers provide. Just have the regular carriers only minimap spot and the support carriers be the spotters. It's like it would be such an easy idea.
That would probably work, but only if you had the support carriers be a separate category for matchmaking. Because if one team had a spotting carrier and the other team didn't, that would be potentially a big problem.
I mean, if they can't do damage themselves, well, it depends on what support abilities they had at top of the spotting.
I mean, I think they would have to have some damage ability, but it would just have to be far less than the regular carriers. Anyway, there's potential there for something interesting, but of course, wargaming is going in the opposite direction.
Yes. So, shall we move on? I guess we have a few more dev blocks.
Yeah, I guess so, unless you've got anything else to add to the files.
Nope.
No? Okay, let's move on then, I guess.
So we have, for example, the ship restrictions in clan battles, something that we've mentioned earlier, that basically penned Petro. And they've actually wrote a long post about how they do ship restrictions and so on. The most amazing thing I find about this whole text is that it never actually enters the mind to just balance ships. They go over what they see as overperforming and how popularity and win rate are both statistics that matter. And I have to also say, in this mode, popularity is actually something that you have to figure in a lot, because if everybody plays Petro, right, then always is a Petro on a winning and a losing team. Because in competitive, if everybody sort of plays the same setup, then win rate is meaningless in a sense. So you have to actually take a close look at popularity and win rate. So this is one of the times where popularity actually matters. So I'd agree with them on that part. But what I find interesting is that they have this long article, but they never actually come up with, if everybody plays this ship and it's really effective, maybe we should nerf it. That doesn't enter like their thought process.
Yeah, I mean, they probably have a different idea of what balance means for more limited modes like clan battles and ranked versus random battles. I mean, they clearly have a looser definition for random battles than they do clan and ranked as the competitive modes. But the idea that they would look at that and go, maybe we should use this as a reason to perhaps look at this ship's balance. I mean, maybe they do. It just is absolutely not addressed in this article at all. So it kind of like, we only have pure speculation that maybe they do use that in that way to look at the balance as a wider thing. But just in the context of this article, we get no hint of that whatsoever.
Well, I mean, we have the evidence in that they don't actually balance the game. Now that said, next dev block coming up is a small change to Petro where they actually try nerfing it again. So there is that. But it's been so long. If they'd actually used that data and worked on that, they would have acted.
Yeah, incremental changes, sure, fine. We've talked about this in the past, but sometimes the incremental changes seem to take a very long time to happen. It'll be interesting to see if that actually has, presumably higher freeboard means the Citadel will be a little easier, or a lot easier to hit. I don't actually have a Petro to check, but that doesn't do anything to its ability to sit and bow tank and behave like a battleship and absorb ridiculous amounts of damage. That just means it's potentially a bit more vulnerable when it's turning broadside, which is more of an incentive for people to just be angled and bow tank. So that one almost seems a bit counterintuitive. I don't know.
I mean, it punishes Petros more that play bad, so that's a good thing in that sense, and it also makes it a bigger target to hit. So even it's not just that you have a higher chance of citadeling, it's a higher chance of actually getting a hit if there's more to shoot at. Now, of course, I think it still has its invisible armor plate and its icebreaker and so on. So there are still quite a few potential problems with the Petro, but it's at least they're now addressing the right thing, right? It's not like, hey, a Petro is too tanky, half a second reload nerf.
That's true, yeah, it's actually addressing damage and survivability as opposed to... Oh wait, I do have the Petro. Okay, yeah, half a meter higher would potentially expose a fair bit more Citadel then, yeah.
Yeah, but in my opinion, the main problem with the Petro is not like it's overpowered. It's so overpowered that it is a shame to call it just overpowered, in my opinion. But the thing is, the underside of the Petro does not exist. Why don't they just add that one also? Because that also gives a higher Citadel chance. Because even if you go underwater, your shells hits the water, they can still hit the Citadel. They still travel let's say 1.5, 2 meters. Add that part, because technically a ship would not be able to sail. I know it's a napkin ship, I know that, but still, make it a little bit more realistic too. Add the under part too, instead of just raising it. A half meter, what's that? How many pixels, from 20 km, from 15 km is that? It's nothing, 4 pixels, 5 pixels?
Yeah, hard to say.
It's going to be, it doesn't sound like a lot, but maybe it's more than I don't know. Yeah, so another one of those slightly weird nerfs.
I mean, this is something where I say, it's okay, do that, test it, see what happens. And if nothing happens, just keep nerfing the Petro. But it's what I like about this is that they are finally going after the actual problem. When they said, okay, after watching the Petro for 2 years, okay, it's a bit overpowered, or a lot overpowered, so we nerf its reload by half a second. That did obviously nothing, right? And it's also not addressing the problem. It's hey, this ship is too accurate, let's nerf its anti-air health. It's when you want to balance a ship, it's not just about making a ship worse, it's finding what the problem with the ship is and addressing that specifically. And with the Petro, it's the survivability, and that's what they're working on. Now, I don't really have much hope because they've done so little and so far apart with the Petro. But at least it's a sort of finally they're going after the root of the problem, in a sense.
I guess, yeah.
I would rather see 1 meter, raise it 1 meter, and then see what happens. If their win rate and their how should I call it, detonation or them getting destroyed is popping up way too high, then they can lower it. It's easier to just make it too underpowered, and then going from there, then actually just raising it a little bit and then waiting 1.5 years and then maybe changing it like they did with the guns.
I mean, in a way I agree. The thing is, right, small changes are good if they happen frequently, right? So there is no need for big change if you want to make more changes. If they every month they would reevaluate their data and apply changes, then it's fine if they make small changes. That's in my opinion. But as you've said, right, if they just, like, that's the same as last time. They're like, okay, finally we're gonna address Petro, but don't worry, we make frequent small changes. And then they made a change, and then now they waited over half a year for the next change. That's not frequent. So we'll have to see if they keep changing the Petro, or if it's just once again a token change to shut people up. On the same note, they've submerged Tashkent, I guess, to make it a bit more powerful. Also see what that does.
I don't know what the general opinion of the Tashkent is these days. Is it still called the trash can? But yeah, it's going to be a slightly smaller target to hit. That's probably going to have even less effect than the Petro, just because destroyers don't have citadels. So yeah.
Hooray! A buff to Russians, finally.
Yeah, it's same as China. I don't really know how the Tashkent is looked. I don't have one. I haven't really played that. Well, actually, I might. I'm not sure. I think I've it unlocked at some point.
I think you have the trash can.
Yeah, but not in my port currently. Might have it unlocked, but not really. I couldn't tell you how it performs currently. Well, other than that, there are some bug fixes for test chips. Not sure if there are any. Yeah, there is a bug with the Brest and the Hornet currently. And the San Diego seem to have an incorrect tracer color for Sapshas.
Fairly minor stuff.
Yeah.
There are a couple of articles on the portal we could maybe look at as well. So,
yeah, the turtle ship Camo is now finally in the game. That looks pretty cool.
That was teased a while ago, and if it was just the Camo alone, I think I would buy it. I really like the look of it, but they're sticking the commander in there as well for the cheaper option. And then there's the really expensive option, 30,000 doubloons.
I think that's cheap compared to what they have done before in a tier 8 was like 20 or 18,000. Just imagine it's one tier higher and it's even just a little bit more expensive for the people that have money.
Yeah, I mean, it's a destroyer camo, so if it was like a battleship camo, I have no doubt they would have charged more.
Possibly. Yeah, I mean, the good news is that the cheapest version is 7,500, I think, and it gets you the camo and the ship, because Tech 3 ships should definitely be on sale, right? And they'll charge you something on the balloons for a Tech 3 ship, obviously.
You also get the 12-point commander with that one, which is...
Okay.
I mean, I guess that's fine. It's actually the commander you've been able to... There was a mission that you could click on. I think we mentioned this last time. There was the article with a mission you could click on to opt in and get 6-point Yisons in commander. So you can have multiple of this commander, apparently. There's nothing... He doesn't have any special abilities. He's just a regular Pan-Asian commander. But, you know, if you're hurting for a Pan-Asian commander with decent skill points, then 12 is all right. You know, 10 is kind of the minimum you want for most ships. So I suppose that's all right if you're in the market for that as well as the camo. I just want the camo though. I just want to buy the camo. I really hope it becomes available as a separate thing at some point in future.
And he wears a cool hat. So you have to acknowledge that Captain wears a cool hat. Have you checked, like, if you go on the camo in game, like on the camo tab, if you can buy it there? Sometimes
Yes, you can.
You can.
No, wait. Sorry, I'm wrong. I don't know. I haven't checked.
Oh, let me look at that right now then. No, you cannot.
I wish you could actually do that, because a 10-point commander, most people can buy them for just credits. Like, it's easy.
Yeah.
Like, at least if they added this, most of the time what I noticed when they're adding like new captains, start putting them on the tier 1. And in my opinion, when you buy a ship, already make sure it's on that ship, so it's trained for that ship, so you don't need to retrain it additionally one extra time. Of course, I understand company money, but still, make it on that ship. Give it a special perk when equipped on this ship. It gives you additional boost, just so you feel more valuable that you actually bought something that is for the ship. Because the commander, you can put it on whatever you want to. Does it have any special voices? Most likely not. Does it have anything special? Niet.
Yeah, if there was some real, like, I've already got a Chengmu with a trained captain. There's not much point for me getting another captain that I would then have to retrain and spend doubloons on elsewhere. That would just cost me additional doubloons that I don't particularly want to. I just want the camo.
Yeah.
Just let me have the camo. I really like the idea of more history-themed camos, including this one. I just want the camo wargaming.
The good news is that at least the smallest bundle basically is 7,500. I think the last time they've sold camos like this, they wanted at least 12,000, and it was a tier 8 for the smallest bundle. It's still not just giving you the camo, which is a shame. But at least they, I mean, I wanna almost say reasonable. We all know it's not really a reasonable price for a camo, but in the World of Warships universe, it might almost be a reasonable price.
It's not completely obscene compared to some prices.
But of course, you can also spend 30,000 doubloons for. But what does it actually give you? 18 items.
Oh, that's the 12-point commander. I was getting confused there. So yeah, okay, that's less generous. 12-point commander when you're spending 30,350 doubloons. Wow. Okay. It does say somewhere. It's like a whole bunch of flags and things, I think.
Just looking at it, like there is like in 12 more. The tooltip isn't big enough to show me all the stuff that's in there. But none of that is something that you really want.
Yeah, the 10 million credits, like if people, I do tend to play a lot of co-op nowadays because sadly the player base is less appealing, let's put it that way. But like, if they at least gave you something additionally, because credits is so easy to earn. 10 million credits is nothing. Like I can play one day without a freaking screen and still get 10 million credits.
Yeah, but they don't want you to actually have value there. They just want to make it sound exciting and get your 30,000 doubloons.
I mean, they have some rare flags in, but it's only 10 of each. I don't know. This feels, and 150 of some of the regular flags, but only a couple of those. This feels like a really bloated, completely not worth the price bundle. The only thing in there that isn't in the other one is that the special flag.
Oh yeah. I mean, they just want to catch, I think, new players or so with that, with making it sound like an exciting battle, and then also like it's 25% off. Oh, you save so much money. Well, no, you kind of waste all of your money. They just try to make it sound exciting and probably hoping to catch some newer players who would also use the credits and such. But
maybe. I mean, to a new player, I suppose 10 million sounds like a lot, but it's not really that much.
You can buy like a sixth of a super ship with that.
If I'm just converting the amount of doubloons you need for the original price without the discount, it's 1,351 Swedish crowns. That's like 130 euros. Would you buy a tier 9 for 130 euros?
No.
I had €130 that I was going to spend on gaming stuff. I think I would spend it on more than just one ship in World of Warships.
And
The
that's
Tech ship.
keep in mind, this is without the discount. Of course, 25% is not going to be that much. It's still going to be over $100 or €100, whatever you want. On one ship, as a new player, you don't really want to spend money. You want to try it out first. That's the sad part. If they gave you, like, this has been like in my head for a long time. If they gave you a ship where you could try it out for, let's say, 3 to 5, maybe 7 days, for a small cost of 100 doubloons, in my opinion, they would earn way more wargaming for people trying out the ships. They want to try, oh, let's see how this one works. Like the tier 10, 100 doubloons, you have like a 7-day try it out or whatever. And then if you want it later on, give them a discount. Like, I don't know, 50%, because they still already bought like the 100. So you already have this one, you get the extra discount, so then you can buy a tier 10. But I don't like people buying tier 10s either, but at least they're going to then get in people for a way cheaper price, but then more people are going to get in because it's so cheap.
Yeah,
Then
but
selling.
I don't think that will benefit them a lot. Well, first of all, you need, like, if you make it so cheap, you need a lot of people spending money. And that also means that even more people will just skip the grind and go directly to like tier 10. And the problem is, right, people are a lot less likely to stay with the game if they immediately skip to tier 10, because first of all, they don't have the motivation of grinding anymore. And second of all, they have no idea how this game plays, so they'll just get wrecked pretty heavily. And they'll be like, stupid game, and possibly leave. If somebody spent 30,000 doubloons for their ship, then they have an investment in the game, so they are more likely to stick with it and not immediately drop it. And most people, that it's better to keep, it's easier to keep people around, I think, if they just play the game regularly and grind through it. They just skip or immediately get a high tier ship. What I would like to see is if you could like try out in not in an actual random battle, but maybe in a co-op game, a premium ship. If there was like, hey, you can play like one co-op battle with this premium ship, or free co-op battles, right? And then you can decide if you buy it or not. That would, I think, be a nice idea.
Yeah, that would be a pretty consumer-friendly move overall if people could actually...
Or like a 24-hour, try it out. Like, that wouldn't be a big problem, because technically it's just like the rental ships that you had. Like the clan battles, rental ships. So why could they not implement that in the game? Because if somebody wants to buy a premium ship, they have to buy it to try it out. And if they don't like it, after one match, you don't really get an opinion about the ship. Like, that's if you buy a steel ship or a coal ship and you regret your purchase, you can actually go to like the support and say like, oh, I made a mistake. It's possible to get your back, but only after one battle. That's not like a good thing. One battle doesn't say everything. You can have a really great match, or you can have a crappy match.
I mean, the thing with the clan battle rentals is that in a clan battles, you basically know your clan, right? So you fully well know what other people are capable of, and you're fine with them just renting a ship and having fun in your clan. But if you make it too easy to test stuff in actual PvP battles, that means you will end up more like in a test server environment, and we all know how the test server is, right? If everybody just can, without consequences, sort of try like a tier 10 ship in a random battle, even if it's for a limited time, the quality of matches will even drop more, and will drop pretty drastically. So I don't feel like that's gonna be. Wargaming is okay if somebody gives them like $200 or so. They are fine if they just skip everything and play a ship they have no idea of in tier 10. But if everybody can just like try out ships in tier 10 in random battles, I feel like it would really be a problem. But if you can try out a ship, then it should be in co.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, there should be a limitation, like to co-op, like 24 hours or 7 days, whatever. Like, it's totally up to them, but it would be at least people can try out the ship, how it works. They can try out different equipment. Of course, after this trial period, you get back your equipment. You spent the money at least. So at least, they're going to get some sort of income. People paying like, let's say, 100 doubloons, and then still trying them out, because they're not going to do it with one ship. They're going to do it with 10 ships. And, 100 doubloons times 10, it's still going to be an income regularly, because there's going to be new players constantly.
It would certainly make it easier for people to actually make informed opinions, because I think we all know as streamers and YouTubers and whatever, there's probably well, it's for sure a minority of people that actually go and look up information online about potential ship purchases. And although there's resources out there, it's like if people aren't going and looking up that stuff, then they're either, like, you sometimes just get people asking in the middle of a random battle, and they'll see you playing a premium one, they'll be like, "Oh, is that any good?" Like that. Yeah. That's the level of trying to get information for some people. So if those kinds of players could have the opportunity to play just a few doubloons and rent a ship and play it in co-op for a couple of days, then I think that would be no bad thing.
Oh yeah, I agree. If it wasn't co-op, I'd totally be behind then.
Because I think like co-op is where I normally, when I get a new ship, I'd always try it in co-op, which angle I need to do this and so on and so on. But you also get like an idea of how it could perform, like in a real battle. Of course, co-op is totally different. But if you give them a longer duration, like a week, as I said, then they get a more opinion. One battle, one battle is one battle, RNG.
Yeah, you're right. If you can play it for a couple of games, then you can see like how the share trajectories go, and how much lead you have to give, and how much you have to angle, and
I do know like another game that did this concept, and they actually said in one of their posts, they earned this and that amount of money by just people trying out the ships. And it was like around 12 to 15% of their total income, because people were trying out the ships. They didn't even state the amount of ships that was bought by like this trial, and it was like a massive amount.
People are way more likely, like if they go, "Oh, I really enjoy that," then they're way more likely to actually go and buy the thing they've really enjoyed and had the chance to try out. I'm pretty sure World of Tanks has at some point done like tank rentals, but I can't remember the circumstances of it. And of course, that is just people getting a like a tier 8 premium for like a week to play in random battles, which if somebody hasn't played a lot of tier 8s, could not particularly be a good thing. But yeah, if it was, we don't have that issue necessarily in Warships. People can just go into co-op. So yeah, it's like World of Tanks has even done this in some form. So I don't see why Warships couldn't.
Yeah, I know actually when you just said it, I remember I bought the French heavy tank, the tier 8, I think it is, like not the autoloader.
Oh, the 50T?
Yes, exactly. Thank you. I actually bought it because I had a trial on it, and I did like it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the world's best tank, but it had my playstyle, and I bought it. So, congrats to Wargaming for like doing this, because this is how you earn money. Give them some freebies, because it doesn't cost them anything to do this. Some scripting for like, let's say 1 or 2 days, and then it's just an income for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, it reminds me a bit on the whole cosmetic thing, right? Because Warships has so long been against adding cosmetics or like trying to properly monetize that. The wargaming is just often very resistant to good ideas, because I don't know, if the idea didn't come from them, then it has to be bad or something like that.
There seems to be an element of insularity there. which I don't know how much of that is different business culture in Russia, or like the Belarus and that general area. So it's possible, but it does feel like they do need to be dragged kicking and screaming towards good ideas sometimes.
It sometimes feels like that for whoever's in charge, that basically if it's not their idea, then it has to be bad. Like they aren't willing to accept that other people have good ideas or to broaden their horizons and see what's working elsewhere. They basically have such high opinion of themselves that they believe if they didn't come up with the idea themselves or so, then it must be bad. Or that's sometimes how it feels like. Like they know better than everybody else, and if another company makes a lot of money with an idea, then it doesn't matter to them because it wasn't their idea.
Okay, it is. I mean, to be fair, that's probably not completely unique to wargaming. I think a lot of gaming companies kind of get stuck in the idea of, well, we do things this way, and it does lead to sometimes quite high-profile failures like Anthem, for example, is kind of a famous recent example of BioWare just completely getting so mired in their own ethos of, well, things all come together at the last minute, and we've got BioWare magic on our side, and we do these things this way because we've always done things this way, and it just ended up being a whole absolute complete messy failure. So wargaming is not unique in that regard, I think, but it would be nice if all the examples of other companies doing successful things in terms of monetization and cosmetics and whatever you could point to, and if they would actually give that more credence and not just be it feels like they're quite dismissive, and like if it's not something they've considered already, then they just kind of don't really care. I remember back when I was still CC pointing out things from time to time, like such and such a company does this, and they're very successful with it, and they were just like, doesn't matter. Wouldn't fit our game, just like complete shutdown dismissal kind of thing.
Well, in other news, I think like the super ships are now no longer in the armory. There is a mission chain, I believe, that you have to accept in the article to get super ships right now.
Yes. I think it's XP based. Let me look that up. Combat missions.
By reading news on our website, you can get valuable information that will help you navigate the seas and also enjoy some direct benefits. Unlock special combat mission chains on our website. Each subsequent train will be more difficult than previous one, but rewards will be greater. So basically, they want you to read the articles and click buttons on it.
Yes, yeah, they've been doing that a lot more recently. Yeah, so first two stages are earn base XP. Third stage, you unlock Yamagiri and Konde. Fourth stage, Zorki, Hanover. Fifth stage, you get Satsuma and Annapolis. And then having completed the fifth stage, that also unlocks the two aircraft carriers, United States and Eagle. And it's not that onerous, so yeah, it's just earn some base XP, basically. I've already seen people in super ships in-game, so it hasn't taken long for people to get those again.
Well, those who read the article, I guess.
Yes. There's also they're trying to entice people back into super tests in greater numbers. Earning community tokens is not that new of a thing, I don't think, but there seems to be a couple of new bundles which seem to be not just the ship, but a commander and a port slot as well. So Exeter, Ishizushi, and Leningrad are ones that you can. I think they're already in the community tab. But I'm guessing it's the fact they're coming with a port slot and a commander that's meant to be the extra thing beyond what there is now. And then there's a bunch of other things as well.
New public test and rewards for it.
Yeah, the rest of it is just existing things in the community tab. Like just saying stuff that you can get with community tokens. So yeah, the actual article title is how to get free premium ships for participating in the public test. I think it's just publicizing largely what already exists in the game. But for people that are unaware of community tokens in the community tab, I mean, Leningrad is a pretty good ship if you enjoy your fast shooty destroyers. So I think that one honestly would be that one alone would be worth going for. But it depends on your will and ability to go and play sufficient battles on the test server, I suppose.
Sorry, Ponty. I can't say it's an awesome ship. It's actually a really, really good one. I like it. I actually bought it for doubloons long ass time ago, but it's really nice to actually play. It gives a different play style than the traditional DDs.
And you can even buy, if you spend more community tokens, a cool camo for it.
Indeed. I mean, the overall reward is actually pretty decent, up to 2,500 tokens on the live server, and up to 5,000 for being in both rounds of the test. So yeah, so a bit of grinding required, but in terms of this being a free-to-play game, I think that's entirely reasonable.
I think the bigger issue what I have with the test server is when I want to change my password or even try to log in, because sometimes the test is not up for a longer period of time, what we can try, and then you get logged out from your account. Then oh shit, I can't remember my password. So if you're trying to get your password, you have to visit a Russian site where, Russian is my native language, so I do understand it, yet. But you understand, it's really hard to actually navigate through there and actually get your password. They need to make it way easier. Test server, they need to add the PT and then all the Warships, and then everybody can have their password back instead of going to the Russian server, their official homepage, and then get your account back.
But don't you use these days you use your regular account, you don't need a test ship account
you need
account anymore.
Yes,
no, they've changed that 2 years ago, so you can use your regular account to log into test server.
No, they get linked together, so your test account is linked to your main account.
Okay.
So all the ships you have on your main account gets to the test account.
I haven't logged into this in a while, but I thought you can just use your main account now to log in without creating anything.
Yeah, but now as they are logged into the same one, you can't because as soon as you're on the whatever it's called, God, my brain is melting. The login center, whatever.
Yeah, the Wargaming Center. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. The Wargaming Center. When you pick the account, it literally says PT there, on the account. Yeah, I can see it opening it.
Maybe it's going to be some weird thing where that, I remember that's definitely how it used to be, and maybe if you had your account from that time, it's still that way. But if you've created, if you've gone on to a test server post a certain time, it can just link to your regular account. I honestly can't remember. I haven't been on a PT server for absolutely ages.
Yeah, I haven't been on there for a while either. I don't have it installed currently.
I got it installed, but it's still updating, but I can't log on because I can't get to the right site. And trying to get your new password is nearly impossible.
Have you tried logging in with your regular account and see if that works?
On the PT, how? I can't. There's PT does not have a different client. When you're on the launcher, it links that, but you need to log on to your account to launch the PT account. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
It sounds very convoluted and very
Yeah,
boring.
it's really, really complicated to log on to your PT. Like, since they did this change. Before, you could actually just have your password on the client, on the PT, because that was a total different client. Now you can't, because like everything is mixed together.
Okay.
At least that's what I noticed, but I could be totally.
I can't comment really because I haven't tried to log onto my PT account for a long time.
I think that takes us to about the end of what we were going to talk about. Don't think there's any more. Like, there's a dry dock video about Orcan, which will probably be okay. And there's actually there's yet another button in there you can click on to get some community tokens or something out of it. So, yeah, they really want you to check all of the articles these days to find those buttons. But yeah, I don't think there is much else otherwise to cover. I think there was some. I think the Prime rewards this month have been.
There was just a new one like yesterday or the day before.
Yeah.
I kind of like it. I still got the container, but at least they're giving us, like, for the people that have Prime Gaming, they're giving us a little bit more extra instead of just a tier 4 ship that you're anyway going to get. In my opinion, that's just bollocks.
There is a very slim possibility of getting a Tulsa, a Rochester, or a Scharnhorst.
Yes, or a Tulsa. Got a 1% chance for a Tulsa, 2% chance for a Rochester, and a 2% chance for Scharnhorst.
Yeah. But, if you're not having to, like, if you're completely lucky and get it and then don't have to pay anything extra for it, it's pretty nice, I guess. But that's pretty slim odds.
Yeah, but let's say like 10 people get the Tulsa in the whole world. I think congratulations. That's the only thing I can say.
If it wasn't that few, then that would be a bit.
There are probably more people with a Prime account.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, what they could do actually saying after, I don't know, each and every event, this amount of people actually got this ship and that ship, it actually contributes more to like people getting Prime Gaming, Or
it would
less,
certainly seem more worth it in people's eyes, potentially, I suppose, if they thought there was a better chance of getting a nice higher tier ship.
Wargaming, I hope you're listening.
Don't worry. Any feedback is immediately shredded anyway.
Yeah, they have a printer that comes out of the suggestions forum and the Discord, and it just kind of prints out and immediately feeds into a shredder.
It doesn't show on your Prime account when I was in Water, so I think if you click that claim button, I think it takes you directly to the claim on Prime. For me, it was just in the usual app on Twitch, but I think if you press that claim button, it will immediately throw you to where you can claim it, technically.
Yeah, but you have to link your account. Keep that in mind. Sometimes, I don't know how this happens, but people have been unlinked. I don't know why, but yeah.
The last time a grid unlinking happened was when Twitch, I think, got hacked and lost a lot of its accounts, and then you had to relink everything because they change your passwords on Twitch and to relink everything or something like that.
I didn't need to.
But there have been unlinkings in the past, I guess.
Should we wrap things up then?
Yeah, I think we can.
So, where can we find you, Mr. Zfilez?
Well, on Twitch, of course. Well, where else? I stream the same days as Etim, except on Fridays because he has his Catributors podcast. So, yeah.
I've heard that's really good and that everyone should listen to that.
Oh yeah. It even contains cats. Sometimes. Yeah, and with that, thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.